Hello and welcome. I'm Robin, and this afternoon I'm going to be running through. Actually, it's morning if you're in America. I've just realised I'm in the UK, and it is this afternoon now for us. It's 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and I'm running through some Dungeon Crawl Classics judge preparation. So, what does that involve? Well, it involves me rolling dice, figuring out an adventure that I've been writing. I've done about 4 or 5 sessions of this already where I've worked through the background to an adventure I'm writing, and it's a kind of creative process where I'm using all of the books before me. So I've got the main Dungeon Crawl Classics book, which I've got referenced for the various creature creation bits and pieces in there. Hello, Rogue user guy in Colorado, 9 a.m. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining the stream. And yes, I'm working through with all of the books from the main book. I'm also using the Dungeon Alphabet by Michael Curtis, and I happen to have the really nice copy of that. I feel a bit lacking in the department of my softback main book. I could do with getting hold of one of the hardbacks. I'm kind of holding out for that at the moment. But I did get the hardback version of this Dungeon Alphabet, which has some excellent tips for making up dungeon rooms, levels, and encounters. And then the Monster Alphabet as well, which I've got here, which is another excellent volume and has a lot of ideas for creating unusual creatures in there. So I dive between these and fill up dungeons and also try and write a bit of a story and an adventure thread at the same time. And I was struggling early on. I was thinking to myself, how am I going to give a kind of synopsis for an adventure that I've already written about 15 pages for without spending like half hour reading it out? But I'm going to try my best to kind of give an overview as I dive in. So I'm going to talk about how I do that as well, which I always like to do on the intro, because obviously you can see I've got a keyboard that I'm working on in front of me while I'm typing away. And I've got various other bits of technology which I'll get into place. So I'll switch over now without further ado. That's the intro done. I'm going to start writing this adventure again and take you through it as I go. Let's get down to the zoomed in view. Switch over to the desk. Yes, so those are the books I'm using, and I will at different times open them up. And then I also use a little device which I'm working on, which is the Raspberry Pi, which is just like a single board computer, which I'm using to, which I've got the mouse and the keyboard connected to, and a browser. And that's where I'm editing in Google Docs. So I'll switch over to that now and just show you where I'm getting to on that at the moment. So there it is. That's my Raspberry Pi desktop. So this is like any other desktop computer, but it runs a version of Linux, and I run a couple of applications on there, namely, just to get you up to date with it, I use mostly the Google Docs and the Google Sheets for some of the creative stuff. So right here in front of me is a bunch of names and location names and things which I've written up over the years, and I just keep them in there as a table. If I dry up on names, normally I can like just fire up a name instantly, but I often dry up, so that's in case I dry up. The other thing I'm using is waterboo.itch.io, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's a website where people create little applications, and one of them, which I've got here, which is open, which I often use during this stream, and which I use all the time if I wanted a quick dungeon. It generates a dungeon for you, and it does it really quickly. So essentially all you have to do is press enter on this page, and you just keep getting new dungeons. I quite like that one with the towers on the edge, actually. Yeah, and you keep clicking it until you go, oh, that's just the dungeon I want. I have a terrible problem when I use it, in that I often go, oh, I like that one, I like that one, I like that one, and I end up saving out about 20 different dungeon maps which I'll never use. But it's a nice tool, it's totally free. The chap that's developing it is always evolving it as well. So, you know, pause my screen or pause the stream at some point if you want to get that URL there, that Waterboo URL, which of course, once these are generated, I then export them to a ping file, which you can see here. Export to ping, downloads and saves that map, which I then incorporate into the document. And this is it. This is what I'm writing. It's called Beneath the Valley of the Ultranulls, which was kind of a working title, and it's inspired by all of the other good stuff that comes out of Goodman Games, really, with that slightly gonzo feel, but not completely. I'm a kind of a fan. If I grab a novel that I've got near me, I'm a fan of Moorcock books and a lot of the old British sci-fi. This is Count Brass from the Castle Brass Chronicles of Count Brass series, and reading all those in the early 80s, I took to that kind of Elric and all of the other kind of novels that are lined up with that is at my core. So I like a bit of chaos in my games, I suppose, what I'm saying. So a summary of what's going on here. I have got an overlay of the map, and that's probably the best way to describe it to you. So if I bring up the map, I've called it Scarpsea, and right at the top over here you can see a place called Coburnog, which is a dwarven stronghold. I then have a place called the Howling Tower over here on the left, which is a wizard's tower. The main theme of the adventure, where the dungeon is in the Oblex, which is that item in the middle there, which is a large stone sort of tower or structure that's there. And in fact, the background for it was that it's from another dimension, and it's the center of a kind of obsidian pyramid from another dimension that was kind of somehow magically or dimension shifted over to this realm. So it's not a natural feature. It's like a massive black obsidian rock in the center of that river and the ravine here. You've got a set of falls at the top here called the Castus Falls, and then the Old Cass, which is the name of that sort of river that goes through the canyon or ravine there, however you want to call it. So where does the adventure go? Well, I thought it would start over at Cliff's End, but using the good approach of Michael Curtis's style of adventuring, which is get straight into it. So what I didn't want to write is something with the convoluted meetings in the inn and slow build up. So I wanted something to run rather quickly, so a party could start in Cliff's End, make their way across to the Obelix on the basis that it's somewhere that is often frequented, or at least efforts of parties to get in there, because it's such an unusual thing. However, there's only one route in, which is on the top, which is, you can see in that pitch there, I mean, it's not very close up. If you look at the Oblex right in the middle, there is an entranceway on the top, and I've also put some creatures, some things called gullbats, which are nesting on top there, which is a first encounter for players as they get down there. I also thought, although I haven't written it down yet, and I need to, that the wizard in the Howling Tower would be also interested in the location. And I've decided that as a sort of starter, the players have got to get down onto it. So as a wizard, he was going to provide them things called a paper wing, which is a glider essentially that they've crafted together. So there will be a few of those which they could jump on flying down, with the obvious dangers and hazards of that. Or they could string some ropes over to it from the edge of the canyon to try and traverse their way down onto that platform before engaging, having to clear off some of those gullbats. So that was it as a general so far. And the other key thing that's going on at the moment in the terms of the background here is that the actual Obelix itself has been there maybe 600-700 to 1,000 years or so. I haven't fixed those dates in yet. But when it arrived, it had a goddess in it, or a god called Idenea, who's a goddess of the gateway to the otherworld, or the underworld even. So she sort of passes and helps souls on their journey to the next stage of life. But since she was ripped out of whatever dimension she normally resides in, she's now in this Obelix, and this is one of the main features and the creatures that they're going to meet as a party as they go in. And it's a case of, do they side with her or do they try and attack her, and how that's going to take roll out in terms of the action. However, she's dying, and that's what's happening right now that puts some urgency around the situation, because she's been there so long. She's not got any followers anymore. No one believes in her anymore. And in the Michael Moorcock story style, if a god doesn't have anybody believing it anymore, it will slowly fade away. So she is fading away and is desperate for someone to sort of help her. But she's trapped in the top level and needs to get down to the lower levels in there to sort out the problem, or whatever the cause of that slow death, or the transfer of the rock here in the first place. And of course, the other side of this is that in Cliffsend as a village, they have their barrows and burial area near there. And because of her death coming up close, there's been unusual things happening with people going missing. Classic story of trouble around the undead. And I put some little standing stones there on the map, which you can sort of see if you look over on this side near Cliffsend. And I've decided they would be a link to the obelix in the sense that they're also made of the same black obsidian, so they stand out as something different around here. And they were dragged there by some of the early settlers in the area that may have used bits of rock that broke off to make their unusual worship area. But in the last session last week, which I did on Twitch, same time here on the Goodman Games channel, I started to fill out a barrow. So I'm going to continue that today, start to put some more creatures in there. And then maybe if I've got some time, I'll also dive onto the obelix itself too. Okay, so that's the overview. Get rid of that big map. You'll probably see that map again. I can sort of pop it up when I need to reference things there. So yeah, I mean, judge background, Scarpsea, large river-filled ravine or canyon. I think I prefer canyon. Do that straight away. Oh, and also one quick warning. Oh, Shadzar, wow, this is the first that isn't trolling in D&D category like the rest of the people that keep claiming D&D. DCC RPG is just D&D. Good on you for not being one of those. Oh, thanks, Shadzar. Thumbs up. Yes. Warning, health warning really, is that I will make spelling mistakes and all sorts of errors because I tend to be sort of focusing on trying to be creative as I dive through. And that may end up with the odd issue. And also there could be the odd technical problem because I sort of jump between things here as I'm working. So yeah, this is where I use the document. I'll zoom into it because it's too far out for people to read and you need to sort of get in there close, 150%. This is Google Docs. And here you can see the stage which I was working on earlier. Where has it gone? Where was I here? Huggers. Okay. So the main burial crypt. So this is just a reminder again. This is within, beneath that label that says Old Cass there, which is the name of the river. There's the barrows that you can see, and underneath the barrows is this main burial crypt. So as an intro, because I'm focusing on this one for today's bit of writing, this large. Oh, there we go. That's good. Like the rest of the barrels. So this okay. This large room. There I noticed an error from last week straight away. Oh, drop down there. Okay, so what I need to do, first of all, I see straight away to make this a little bit easier, that map that I've got there is a bit small, plus it hasn't got every room numbered, and that's one of the things with this one-page dungeon if you're using it. I often have to edit the files because they don't put a number on every room, and it's really just to help you out when you're doing it. So if I switch over to the tool I was using, which is called GIMP. Now this is a editing tool which you can get for free on the PC. I think you can get it on PC, Mac, and you can get it on Linux desktop like I've got here. And all I've done earlier just to prepare myself is I've actually gone in and I've started to put extra numbers on. Now the problem is with the numbers on there, they often scatter them. So this one had 1, 2 over here, and then 3 in this other room here. So I've had to sort of fill in the numbers. Unfortunately, that loses the sequence. So at some point when I get to the end of doing this, I will have to tidy up these docs to put the numbers in some kind of logic, like number 1 should be that entrance hole. It shouldn't be number 7, because that's just nonsense that you'd walk into the 7th room. So at some point in the future, which I'm not doing now, for speed, I just threw numbers in the extra rooms that didn't have numbers. So that's the file. Now what I do is I export this as a ping file, and that allows me to import it into the Google Doc, which is again just a handy free tool to use like that. So back into here, so there's the image I imported before, and you can see it didn't have the numbering on because I took it straight from One Page Dungeon. So if I'll clear those off now with, I'll just delete that, and then I'll insert that new file which I've just created, which has much better sizing because I cropped it down as well. So there it is, Barrow. So much more visible. So really, even though things aren't in the right order here, I can see straight away the first room, the entrance is 7, and the second room, which I just listed, is 1. So I'll put those next to the areas just as a reference, even though it makes no sense that they're in that order, at least for now. It's something that I can use. So 7 being the entrance hall, and the main burial crypt at the moment is 1. So as a reminder, what I did there on the entrance hall, I threw on the dungeon alphabet to come up with the fact that it's there's cairns of skulls are piled high in the initial chamber with racks of bones behind. Tattered banners are laid across the bones with a symbol of the Rocksmith family. Now I didn't put any traps there, I just left it as a just as an initial intro room so they could choose where to go. Now what I need to do, of course, is do the logical thing, which is just to write where you can go from there. So entrances and exits are vitally important, of course, unless they're hidden. So I wonder if I can shrink that up to bring it up the page in any way, because it's just a long way off down there at the moment for scrolling around. I think it's just because it's so large it's gone off, but if I shrink the size of it down a wee bit, that might help a wee bit. So yeah, anyway, exits wise, so it's got 3 exits. So this one could be an initial secret, so that's a possibility. So this could be behind the pile of bones in there. So, you know, if they ignore that cairn of bones, which I'll say is to the east here, they've then got a pool of water to the northwest and an exit to the west. So let's just say. So I'll just put it in the main pile. East of the entrance hall and obscures the wall to the northeast. There's a pool of water where the ground has collapsed over the ages. And I'll just say and I meant that was the northwest, based on the fact that it's just the normal northwest, etc. So to the east, to the west, is a large stone door. And it's worth mentioning here that the west is a pool of water where the ground's collapsed over the ages, and beyond it and slightly submerged is a stone door. Two ends. Yeah, the main part of the skull is in the east of the entrance hall and obscured by the wall. Okay, so I'm going to switch over now to have a look at the dungeon books, and I think I'm going to maybe throw up a door or maybe a trap on one of these doors. Particularly interested in the one in the water, so I might find something that sits in water in here. So as an initial threat in this room, there could be something under that water slightly threatening, so I might have a look in the book for that. So I shall just switch over and check that out.
In the delve defilers, they shall all drown in lakes of blood.
So here we have the... All right. Tell these books are going to come crashing down me. They're such heavy tomes. So yes, so I've got doors in that room. So what am I going to do? I'm going to find some doors in here. So I've got D's for doors. I might make one unique door, perhaps under that pool of water. Plus also, let's have a look for. It's got W for weird. U is for underwater. So I'll have a look at doors, and then I'll go for underwater and maybe roll something up on there as well. Oh yes, Shadzar, keying room, especially a nightmare when the application doesn't put a number on every room. But I can get round to that. It's a small obstacle to overcome later on. So doors, page 16. Yeah, so this is written by Michael Curtis. I think he's got other contributors to it as well, but it's mostly Michael Curtis. Excellent writer, and has written lots of adventures and games for Goodman Games over the years, settings, etc. As I understand, this is kind of where he started out, because he had a blog site where he recorded all of these kind of tables and built them over quite a long period of time, and then eventually had it made in this great book. So making use of that now. And obviously this is system independent, so you don't need a particular system for this. Get right to the right page. D16, doors. Yeah, so it doesn't have, for example, statistics in here. I'm having to sort of pull that out, and then I'll work on the name of a track or something afterwards. Doors. So it's got 20 interesting dungeon doors here, and a D20 because it's 20 on there. So I shall find my D20 and roll it. 8.
You will cut off your legs, your arms.
Okay, small barred window set in the door. That's maybe not right for a crypt, so let's roll again. 14. So okay, so this door is alarmed by magical or mundane means. So that does feel a little bit better actually. So I'll write that down. I'm going to make that the west door. I'm going to say alarmed. Alarmed. So just scribbling this before I go back to the writing. And then maybe the back door as well. Let's roll down, see what that comes up with. Oh, same again, 14, 5. Okay, door has been battered down and crudely repaired. So let me just see, because that's maybe just out of focus there. No, that's pretty sharp in focus actually. Yeah, so the door's battered down and crudely repaired. So that works for the door that's under the water at the back. And I can say that someone at some times maybe has raided the tomb, maybe dug their way under that door. It's crumbled down. So it makes it a little bit more interesting traversing that. So I'll say water door damaged, crumbled, and damaged. So that works for me. And then let's get the pools, was it, under P for the water in front, 48. P is for pools. Let's see what we're going to do here then. So, well, this is a D10. I was reading one down there, sentient pool. That's quite an interesting one. So another D10. Okay, that's a 6. Just put it into view. Oh, it's poisonous. Death to all that drink it. Oh, well, that's quite interesting. So we'll say that some sort of poison has seeped into that. So, I don't often have players, interesting enough, in dungeons say they're going to drink stuff. They know me too well to just pick up a cup and drink. But I could do something interesting with that, though. I mean, perhaps it's slightly caustic or something as well. I mean, I'll write that next to it as well as an idea to explore when we get to that. And then I'll probably just dive over actually to the monster alphabet and have a tuck in there to see something that might reside in a pool. Just because I want some sort of monster in there, I think, as an entrance in here. So, vampire, wings, infernal, giant. So aquatic, 7. Let's check out what's in the water. And of course, I don't have to take exactly what's in here, but it's good to get some initial stimulation on what to use. I'm now wondering if I've actually got a D12 over here. I've got every one of the funky dice. It's sometimes tricky to work out what they are. So I've got 9. So Merthing, the monster is warped amalgamation of fin, fur and fang. Flip a coin, heads, fish head on a crossbreed body. Tails, ordinary monster with a lower body replaced. Okay, so, well, I'll roll a d6 then and just see what comes up. And as for the flip of the coin, 1 to 3 is heads. So it's tails. Tails, ordinary monster with lower body replaced by a fish tail, an eel body, and otter. Seaweed. Now that interests me. Obviously, there's no seaweed here, but there could be some other kind of marshweed creature. I'm going to take that. I'm not going to roll it because I don't really want anything with flippers in there. It's not near enough to the sea or anything, or a fishtail. But I'm going to say that it's got marshweed on there instead. So, what's the ordinary monster going to be, though? I'm going to have to roll that up as well. So, weed beast. I shall write down on there, ordinary monster, weed beast in water. So potentially, to bounce off that, I could go for something in here that's plant-like. So I'm looking down, flame, horde, infernal, insectoid. Is the P for plant? Yes. 54 and 55. I'll say it looks like a large table. Let's go and check that out.
You will cut off your leg,
Let's see where I'm 54
your
and
arms,
55.
and your head.
Right, so plants. Interesting, double page of it. Let's get something plant life in there. So a D8 initially. 1. Okay. The plant is covered in sharp spikes that can lacerate and entangle, such as thorn, needles, and serrated razor leaf. Grabbing or grappling causes 1d3 damage per round. I really like that because if they're going to traverse that water, I could say whatever it is in there doesn't maybe attack initially, but as they sort of get through the water, which is murky, towards the door, the broken door in that first entrance hall, there's something sharp in there that's going to start lacerating them, and that will be on whatever this creature is. So that's a nice initial one, sort of a lacerating legs. So just putting that down, and
Infidel defilers
let's have a look up next.
should all drown in lakes of blood.
D10, and it's going to be expression of evil herbage. Let's have a look. Bird of paradise. Oh, can't say that I'd go for that in here, in kind of in middle of a tomb. A bird of paradise doesn't work for me. Let's roll again. 4. Lily pad. That does work, actually. I'm going to take lily pad, and I hadn't thought of that either. So quite a sort of weirdness to come into a barrow, first entrance hall, pile of bones on one side, and the other a pool of water and a broken door beyond it. Inside that pool, a lily pad on the top, something that they might push out the way, but they'll get lacerated while they'll go through because it's actually a beast. So I'll go for a lily pad. It works with the water theme there. Okay, I'm going to go for that. Plant King's minions are legion. To create a follower while on table P3 twice, and P4 to create a leader roll on 5. So, yeah, well, that's interesting. It says like we've got under this side, they've got whether they're necromancers, berserkers, assassins. I'm not going to go for that because I'm going to be a minion grade rather than the full-on. But I've now got my base for that monster, so I can start to write that up, and then we'll create a stat block for that, so that there's bring it to life, so to speak. I create the stat blocks using the main rulebook, and then I just pull some stats out there. I could also use some of the other Goodman Games adventures, but I'll just use the base book, and there'll be a creature in there, I'm sure, that will be relevant to be able to grab its stats from there. So let's dive in. Vombis Leech, that's interesting. Leathery eyeless cowls. The leeches cling to the undersides of caverns. Okay, so that's like a sort of a cloakery type thing. Let's have a look through. Oh, this is the sort of men and magicians. Troll Lord. Subhuman might work if it's something in there that's sort of subhuman. A degenerate, some kind of beast that's wound its way into this cave and picks off the scraps of dead bodies left behind or something. And because we know it's got that 1d3 poison from the lacerating legs, it makes it a little bit tougher. Plus, this is not meant to be like a hardcore tough section, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to use that subhuman stats because it's some old local monster or something that's been imbued by the powers of the goddess in the nearby obelisk. So subhuman. I'll just switch over to the desktop so that I can do that. So what I do when I'm creating a creature in here is I've got a massive table which is a bit too big really for a stat block, but again it's just a convenience for me to find a stat block that's useful. So there's one. I had these creatures I did last week called Huggers, which are a form of undead, and there's going to be some in here as well. But I'll just copy that and I'll paste it down for this new creature, which I haven't got a name for yet. Let's have a look. That's the obelisk. Get me to the right place. Level 1 obelisk. I think I've gone too far. There it is. Okay, so I was copying that from there, and really I was looking further up. So main burial crypt, entrance hall. So this is where I need to insert that stat block. So I'll just paste it in there. Control V, classic Control C, Control V. And what I tend to do is obviously I put the name in and then work through with a stat block on there. It's just a convenient table for me because it keeps everything in one place, but it's way too big for putting it in and publishing it like that. But so name wise, so I know it's some kind of subhuman, so it's maybe a one-off beast that's just happened to form in this pool, survived over the millennia, but it grows weird dark lily pads on the top. So let's call it a lilac. Just coming out of my head, a lilac spike plant. Lilac spike lily. Is lily spelt with 2 L's or 1? It's probably 1. Okay, so the lilac spike lily, or the LSL. Get rid of everything already in there because I had this was the special for the huggers that I created before, and they were undead. And this isn't undead, it's plant life. I will put SP in there, that should be there for special. So right, so as I said, I'm going to use the subhuman stats and just mix it up a little bit because of the couple of things we know about that pool of water, being that it's poisonous water, and also there's some kind of lacerating ability of the legs of the lilac spike lily that's in there. So initiative to start with -1 actually. I think it's probably fair because it's just a slow plant that's stuck in that hole. Alignment, I'm going to say I'll leave it on chaotic for now. Action dice 1d20, so that's the type of dice they roll when they attack, so we'll leave that as it is. Armor class, I'll copy the one off this subhuman, which gives it an AC 13, kind of thick rubbery plant that it is. And hit dice, so we had 1d8 plus 2 in here for the subhuman. I'm gonna say this one's 3d6 because I think it's a little bit more beefy, but it could end up. No, let's go with 2d8 plus 2. Why? It just came into my head, but I'm going to do that. So hit dice. And movement's definitely not 40. Movement's actually going to be 10. This is a slow plant that can only kind of slowly crawl its way out of there. Just tidies that up. Okay, so the attack is going to be two kinds of attack. So it's going to have a spike underneath that lily pad, which it can thrust. So I'm going to attack, spike, and let's have a look what the subhuman's attack is. It's a +3 and it does 1d4 +2, and that was a club. So I'm going to say this is +3 to sort of match it. But the damage of the spike will be a little bit better than that, 1d6 +1, I think. Right, so the other thing we know about it is that it's poisonous in there and has like lacerating lilies or leaves, so let's just call it sharp leaves, and I'm not going to put an attack amount on that. I'm just going to say in the special that when they pass through any kind of water that's got this monster in it, you're going to take that 1d3 as it said. So I'll just say sharp stems and leaves along the edge of the lily result in 1d3 damage to anyone passing through an area of water that contains lilac spike lilies. You know, I'm going to check that spelling because I reckon it might be wrong, and I'm just having a moment of, oh, what's the spelling on that? So lily spelling. So maybe it is 2. No, I was correct. It is 1 1 L. So I'm saved. Anyway, so lily, the edge of the lily resulting 1d3 damage when you're passing through an area of water that contains a lilac spike lily. So that's done. Now we said, now this thing's got fortitude, so the subhuman has fortitude +2, which I think is fine because it's I'm going to say +3 because it's such an extensive sort of network of weeds and under mess of this plant. So I'm going to say +3 fortitude. Reflex 1, I'm just going to say reflex 0, and will, I'm not going to give it much for will. So -2 to match the subhuman stats that I'm copying out of the Dungeon Crawl Classics main book. Here. So, that's a reasonable start. I mean, the only thing is I haven't described it, so I could put a description in here as well and say this plant creature will do, resides in dark waters, caves, and areas where bodies might be left. So we could call it carnivorous as well, couldn't we? No, I won't say it's carnivorous. It's not specifically carnivorous, but it would. So we left. So unwary walkers through water containing will find themselves cut and sliced by the very sharp lily pads and weeds. So that will do. Right, so next.
The delta filers, which shall all drown in lakes of blood.
Next, what can I do? So the doorway, which we've said on there, we had an alarm door in here, and we also said there's poison water in there. So I can say, drinking any water from a pool containing a lilac spike lily, I can't spell, lilac, will result in poison. Poison damage. Save. Fort save. So something relatively low. It's not going to be like a deadly thing. Fort save DC 12. No, let's make it lower. But let's say, however, let's make it nasty. So it's a DC 10. The poison contains the microscopic seeds of the lilac, and upon the death of the infected, they will slowly seed a new growing plant with the body being drawn slowly to a water source. So that's its life cycle sorted. Let's find out what how it fertilizes now. But that it does basically need a body. So this reminds me of the Goodman Games DCC adventure, the classic one, which I can't think of straight away, but it has those monsters at the start. Oh, Beneath the Starless Sky or Sea. And it has the two zombie-like plants in there. Oh, don't want to give any spoilers away. Shouldn't be talking about other adventures. Just talk about this one. Anyway, they have seeds that try and get into people. So maybe that's where I got that idea from. So that's the lilac spike lily, and that's in the water in this area beside the flooded area. So if I go down to the map and just point that out, so you can see they're coming to the entrance hall. Pile of bones in this corner, which would be nice to represent on that map as well at some point if I edit it up, which are hiding the secret door behind there to the main burial chamber. And in this water is where we have several lily pads that are visible on the surface of the water. So I need to add that back to the description just to sort of tie it in with the attack of the creature when they get in there. So really I need to start possibly, and I haven't been doing it yet, but actually starting something here where I might add a little bit of saying like a read aloud block. And even though that might not make it into the final layout, at least it gives me something to say, this is what you read to the players, and I'll put that in italics for now. So one last thing to say. Pool of water is still and covered in a dozen or so plate-sized dark black, no, not black, dark grey lily pads. That will do, won't it? So then from then on, what do they do? Do they make their way through there or not? So then I need to do the judge text here. Maybe I should just write judge block as well here, just because I should really break up the whole document like that for now, just while I'm writing it, so I know what goes in where. And in the judge block I'll say beneath. First of all, behind the skulls to the east of the room, let's make that obvious so that a judge reading that knows what they're doing. Behind the stacked skulls to the east of the room, is a door, is a secret stone door. This door magically alarmed to now, because I haven't filled out the rest of the dungeon, the rest of this cairn or barrows yet. I don't really know what it's going to alarm, but I'm going to say it's the door is magical alarm to warn XXX of the presence of a, let's just call it a barrow robber for now. So at some point I'm going to use that trigger at another point while I'm working through there, and I'll hold on to that for now. I'll also say, because this is the judge block, beneath is a lilac spike lily, which is hungry and happy to take a spike to an unwary walker in the water. And I'll just say the lilac lily will not leave, but does have an escape route. Beneath that's an actual escape route because it's a plant with a route, an escape route through under the wall beside it to the west. So maybe if it struggles with the fight a bit, it will get away. And yeah, I lowered the DC on the fortitude save because I thought if that poison gets in them when they die, it's going to get them rather than poison them right now. But maybe I should. Yeah, that was in the water, so the seeds are in the water essentially. And I put special down there. I'll just move that up because the special kind of starts the drinking bit there. Right, so that room is sort of done. Let's have a look next. I think I'll edit the main burial chamber. So really I need something under the judge piece to put how they're going to open that secret door. So let's do that.
You will cut off your legs, your arms, and your head.
So back up here and just say new paragraph. Secret door in the wall can be discovered. Let's say DC, capital DC. Let's say DC 14. And we'll push open with a howl from the stone. Revealing the main burial chamber. That's it. So that's the read aloud and that's the judge block. So I'm going to follow that format now as I work down. Let me just check how long I've been streaming as well. So 51 minutes. Okay, so that's not too bad. I'm aiming to go for about an hour and a half, so I've got about another 35 minutes, which will help me finish off this main burial crypt. So I prefer chamber. Yeah, let's do that. Let's call it chamber. So this large, and that's where I haven't written it, this large, I'll call it a crypt though here, is lined with memorials to the Rocksmith family, and the floor is covered in inscriptions and inscribed ancient spells. So this is going to be my read aloud block, so I'm going to do that again. I know it's very obvious writing it in, but it's just a reference for me while I'm writing, what I know what I'm doing. The large, okay, so that's where it turns into something less read aloudy. So this large crypt is lined with memorials to the Rocksmith family, and the floor is covered in inscriptions and inscribed ancient spells. Unlike the rest of the barrow, this floor is tiled in the rock of the same black obsidian as the obelisk. So obviously this old family had access to the materials from that obelisk dungeon block. Toward the east end of the chamber is a large memorial stone covered in glowing blue glyphs. So the large obsidian memorial stone is also magnetic. So this I rolled out of the book. To avoid the pull of stone, they'll need to make reflex save DC 12. Any fellow will see around and fling from their arms and clang to position. So I got that from Michael Curtis's book last week to say it's magnetic. And then a strength check is required to remove any item stuck on there. The glyphs require a wizard to make an arcane check of DC 18 to understand their meaning. They describe a spell and ritual slow death, which is slowly killing. Ritual of death. Don't need to say slow death. And ritual of death, which is slowly killing Idanea, the goddess in the obelisk. She survived 1,000 years. And let's write that properly. Bad spelling again. 1,000 years resisting the spell. However, she now has weeks left before she fades. She expires. The name Idanea is mentioned in a section of the text described that she is a god of the gods. Okay, so that makes sense that, again, for the players, I need to write that in the sort of read aloud of this. Oh no, it's more of a secret, isn't it? So I don't need to rewrite that. It's not a read aloud. It's if the characters explore the glyphs. So they will notice. Mentioned several times. As a god to worship, so I want to fill them in here so it's not a complete mystery. And one section of the text that she is a god that guards the entrance to the other underworld. Okay, that's fine. So that's basically there. I don't think there's much more that's needed in that burial chamber. I do need some treasure in there, though, I should think. Maybe some stuff that stuck to the magnetic stone memorial. That'd be a good idea. Let's have a look at treasure. I'm sure there's a treasure section in this book. Treasure chests. Actually, why not go for the main Dungeon Crawl Classics book? That's probably got the good treasure section at the back, if I remember correctly. And just dig in through there.
Infidel defilers should all drown in lakes of blood.
I know, if I just look at the index, I'll be able to remind myself where the treasure is in there. 393. Let's go for it. Nearly there. I should have had that marked. Right, let's flip back to the desk and have a look at treasure. Oh. I thought there was a whole section where you could create swords and things. I did that last time. No, that's still in the monsters. Ah, scrolls. Here we go, treasures. Swords, magic. Oh, maybe I'll put some scrolls in there. Yeah, let's see what we can do. Let's create a scroll, something in a metal case that's been attached onto there, and just see how that rolls out. So let's get the dice. So that's a 72 I've just rolled here, which means it's 1d4 level 1 spells. So now let's roll a 1d4. Let's find my funky 1d4. I think I've only... there it is. And why not just show me rolling it? Let's go for that. Good roll. 4. Okay, excellent. So there's 4 spells. And they're all level 1. And I should just write that down before I forget. So 4 level 1. And a casting mechanism, which is another D100 roll. 45. Spell check must be made by reader, so standard spell check. Spell check. Next page, there's a table on unique traits, so that's probably worth having a go at. So that is just a D12. It's remarkable, actually. What I really like about Dungeon Crawl Classics is the amount of D12 usage you get. Tends to be a most neglected dice. And I know they have the dice chain, which you can go up and down anyway, but there's a lot of tables that use the D12 as well. So anyway, I rolled a 6. Bring my D12 back into view there. So a 6, and let's have a look. Signed with the sigil of a wizard's conclave. Clearly the scroll is created for their use. Okay, so a conclave. So I'm going to now jump, just because I just jump of creativity, and that's just how I roll. So I'm trying to do this, if anybody's looking at this and watching at a later stage, I kind of following my creativity as it flows. So I've just done the scroll, I've just rolled up that it belongs to a conclave, and now I'm desperate to find out who that conclave is. So I'm going to come up with a name for that, looking at my Raspberry, go into my names and see if I can come up with a conclave's name. Now this is obviously very tiny text to see on screen, but if you paused you might just be able to read it. So I've got a section at the back here where I've got a load of weird adjectives. I realise I've written that lake in there, that should say adjective as well. I'm correcting my own tables as we go. And so it's a D100 roll. Well, it's basically a D4 to start with. So I roll a D4. And I've got a 2, which means I'm going to roll on this second table here with a... Oh, it just goes off the page a little bit. So let's hope I don't roll over 80, otherwise I'll have to scroll again. So now a D100 on this to see what word I come up with. 37. The foaming. Okay, I quite like that. Foaming, I'm going to take that, and then second one I'm going to roll on table 1 and roll again, and I've got an 11, which is the cackling. Okay, that's reasonable. So I'm going to call them I'm just going to call it the cackling conclave even. Cackling conclave. Right, that's it. Just wanted to get a name down for that before I moved on. So go back to the desk again. So we've got the spells, so let's try and find the spells. Now I'll tell you what would be great if they had a table in here that had all the spells listed level 1, and then I could just roll it. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do instead probably is just sort of put my hands in there and just pick them myself. Yeah, we're going to have comprehend languages. Comprehend language. Flipping through. I'm going to have an invoke patron, but I'm going to have it keyed to Idonaea, the dying goddess in the Obelix. So again, just invoke patron, and I'll detail that it's been manipulated to call on Idonaea's help. So she'll feel the call of this scroll. Because we'll say it's from this cackling conclave that are somehow related to the Obelix. So invoke patron. I'm not going around very far, but colour spray's a level 1 and a charm person. They're going to be the other two. Colour spray and calm. All the C's. Colour spray and charm person are going to be the other two in this scroll case. That's fine. And I'm now also going to put a magic item in there, but it says random regenerative item provenance, predictability of spell powers. Yeah, we haven't really got anything that's going to detail that out for me in an easy way now that will be nice and quick. So I'm just going to stick with that, and then I'm going to have another weapon in there. I think I'm going to put a mace in there, and I'm going to use the sword magic to create some abilities for that mace, and also maybe some mundane items like a couple of suits of armor. I'll say there's a chain shirt. Maybe the chain shirt's still got someone's arm in it because it's magnetized on there. So let's say chain shirt and a shield in there as well. And maybe something like a mace would go in there well as well. So I'm going to use the sword magic. So you're going to watch me do this. It does have, obviously, it's all about being a sword, but I'm going to say it's like a magical mace that's been stuck on there. And let's do the usuals for it. I won't need to roll on that table because I'm going to call it a mace. But let's roll to see what its alignment is. Is this thing chaotic or 41? So it's just crept onto the neutral. So it's just crept on the neutral, the mace, and its characteristics. So let's have a look. Oh, let's have a look on the spell check table. Yeah. So let's read across. So I'm just checking what I need to do. Next, roll on 8-2 to determine the sword's alignment are done. Then to do percentages on 8-4, let's do that. Read across the table to see how this results. Doing 6 aspects of the sword's ability. So we can roll that multiple times to see which one of these sections we get. So that is it's a percentage roll. So 18, its spell check is 18 to 21. I'm going to need a new sheet of paper to write these notes down on this mace. And the reason I'm picking mace here is because I have already done a sword that's detailed in the Obelix, which is in the document, so I didn't want to copy that again. So, right, spell check 18 to 21, C 18 to 21, and I can keep rolling again here rather than going across. I can pick it one at a time. So 22, again we're going to give it a +1, so it's a simple mace. Then roll again for its intelligence. 96, it's off the scale. 3d6 +4. Okay, so this is a pretty clever thing. It's communication, 65. It's hugely intelligent, but it communicates by simple urges. Now I think probably I should use the speech and telepathy along there if I show you on the table. Perhaps I should use a speech and telepathy, just because if it's so intelligent and all it does is simple urges. Now, of course, I could read across the whole table in one hit, but I'm deciding to roll multiple times to see what I get to mix it up a bit. So I will say it's got speech and telepathy. Speech, telepathy. And number of banes. Now this is where it would be ultra powerful if I went for that top one, so I am going to roll the banes again on a D100, so 92. It's got lots of banes. I'm going to roll again. Oh, I can't stop rolling 90. I must be there we go again. There we go. I'm going to take 42. I've just got the door going. Classic. I will take a break right now, so I'll be back in 5. I'm back. So yes, just took a brief pause, so restarting now for the last what have I got, probably about 20 minutes left. So I was making a mace, and yeah, I've got one in my hand here made of wood, and so it's not going to be a wooden mace in the game because it's been magnetized onto this crypt statue or whatever that I've got in the dungeon room there. But this is the kind of thing I'm aiming for, this kind of size. But I was just thinking as I just answered my front door there, which is why I had to escape for a moment, so apologies for that. But I was thinking maybe what I could do with this is make it out of bone. So I could say that the mace that I'm creating is sort of like carved from someone's ancient bone, which is why it's got a sort of magical bane about it. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Put aside my mace for now before I do myself an injury with it. And yeah, also because I'm starting back halfway through, I thought I'd just sort of bang the gong as well, just to sort of refresh the stream while I'm working through. Hopefully I did that in a way that's not too loud. The other day I was doing that on a stream and I think I sort of broke my microphone at the same time. So yeah, back down to the action of the desk, and I was making that, making this mace. So I think what I'm going to do is, I'll just flip over to the powers page. So I've said straight away that, still on the powers page, go back to where I was. So we had Banes, and I can't remember what I rolled. It said it communicates by speech, telepathy, and then I rolled 42 when the doorbell rang, which is number of banes, none. I'm going to have one bane on there. I'm going to do one bane. And special purposes, let's see what that comes up with. 83, so one type 1 power, 50% chance of one type 2 power. So I'm just going to give it one type 1 power. I don't want something too powerful at this stage. One type 1 power. Dice roll for special purposes. 1d6, then 1d6 plus 6. Just have a little drink to get myself reorganised.
You will cut off your legs, your arms, and your head.
Let's go to the next page and we'll get magical sword banes. Now I've got one. And it's a D100. It is a D100 that's spread over 2 pages because it's a huge. 42. Oh, extended critical threat range. Attacker scores criticals against a dragon. So it's a bane against a dragon. So it's a mace with a massive bane against the dragon. Maybe because I said it was made constructive as sort of a whitish, yellowish bone. Potentially, then that could be part of a dragon. Which is why it's maybe bane against them or something. So let's say that then. So it's got dragon bane, and extended critical threat range against bane, a 1 or more result on the die. If normally criticals are 1920, so you got one extended crit threat against dragons versus dragons. Okay, I need to write that up in the thing. So special purpose, so it said 1d6 and then 1d6 plus 6. Now I said it was a neutral mace to start with, so let's say 1d6 to start with, 5. Bring balance to a specific place. Okay. Bring balance to, I'm going to say it's to that mountain range, which I've got to the north, which is, yeah, so Copenhagen. So I call it the Koban Mountains. Let's go for the Koban Mountains, to the Koban Mountains. So this could lead off to somewhere else now, because this wouldn't be within the scope of this adventure I'm writing, but I could say that there's some sort of dragons roosting further north in the Koban mountain range, and this mace was originally down here for the purpose of trying to bring balance to that specific place. So that's that. And then I'd need to do 1d6 plus 6 on that table as well. Get rid of the overlay there. So it's 5 plus 6, 11. So slay one lawful creature for every chaotic creature slain, and vice versa. Okay, so it's got to slay one lawful creature for every chaotic creature slain. So essentially, the wielder of this is going to feel the need to write a balance, in the sense that if they kill a lawful creature, they've got to then kill a chaotic. There's going to be a powerful urge, or at least this thing's going to be moaning at them because it can talk. So that's quite an interesting bane. So slay one lawful and one chaotic, balance. Right, so I've scribbled all that down. What were the other things that you can do? Okay, so it's got 1 power. So we said one type 1 power, and I wasn't going to give it an extra, just because I don't want to make it too powerful. So turn over to the type 1 powers. Now, so these are relatively simple ones. Let's have a look. 61. Detect invisible once per day. Reasonable. It's particularly because it can talk, so it might want to whisper to the owner, I can see someone. I can see someone invisible beyond the barrier. Or something along those lines. So yeah, detect invisible. And I'm going to do that. It said 50% chance of a type 2. Why not? No, I went over 50. I was doing under 50. So, okay, there we go. Let's write those up now, because I also need to come up with a name for it as well. So I'll get the keyboard back up in front of me so I can type up what we've just done. It's probably, given that we're now at 5 or what's that, 12:15 if you're in Eastern time, it's going to be a point where I finish, I think, after doing this. So we've said there's a large crypt lined with memorials to the Rocksmith family. The floor is covered in inscriptions and scribed ancient spells. Unlike the rest of the barrow, this floor is tiled in the rock of the same black obsidian as the oblex. Towards the east end of the chamber is a large memorial stone covered in glowing blue glyphs. And let's also say, go back to normal voice. Let's say on here, there are various small objects, including a shield, including a shield, pinned, let's say mounted, because of course they don't know it's magnetic at this stage, mounted on the memorial stone. So that's where the so let's just say items pinned on the memorial stone include shield. I won't go into the details at the moment. Chain shirt. Short sword. Silver. Fine crafts. One ship. Spelled that wrong, but it's corrected it for me. And then say I spelled shield wrong as well. scroll case inscribed with runes, which if read, let's say wizard BC 14, describes I've put my details away in my inside here. Describes, and see if I can find where I put a bit of paper. It's going to be like hidden deep within the book now. I shall get there soon. I know I will get there. There it is. My piece of vital paper. Sticks to my head like a hopping vampire and remove it. So here we have my bit of paper where I wrote down that we had spells of colour spray, just heard the door go again. That's classic. Be right back, just a moment. Back. Apologies for the pause again. It's one of those days where you've got people coming to the front door on a Saturday, and my wife's a nurse. She's at work. She's gone to work, so leaving me on my own, which is not too bad. I don't mind the odd interruption, since streaming is that kind of way where you can kind of stop and dash off occasionally. Anyway, so describes what was I going to say on there? So a conclave of wizards called the Cackling Conclave. And within the scroll case are 4 spells. Colour spray. Invoke patron. I'm going to say again on that one, it's keyed. So if that's used, it will invoke Idoneia as a patron, the goddess that's in the obelisk. So that's something. I need to write her up as a deity, or even a patron. Even though she's a god, I always thought she could make a good patron. So probably do a patron for her actually. And then I've said charm person. And comprehend languages. Now, the comprehend languages will be interesting because, of course, they may never find this or decide to use it. Oops. However, they can potentially make a good benefit of using that comprehend language later if they didn't have anything to read stuff inside the obelisk that might be difficult to understand. So, the mace. So we know it's dodgy against dragons. I know that to start with I wanted to make it bone-like, but I think maybe a bone mace that has a silvered handle, like a wire wrapping around the handle, which is what's drawn it magnetically onto this stone, memorial stone. So I'm going to say a mace with a bone shaft and head hone, but with a handle of bound steel. No, I'll just sort of call it metal so they don't need to detail what it is. So mace with the bone shaft and head, and detailed with a handle of bound wire metal. So the mace, we need to come up with a name. So let me go back to my names thing and just sort of generate a view on here again. I'll just dive through. Unseen sort of sprang to, the word unseen there sprang to me because it gives you that ability to see the invisible once a day. Yeah, so I'm going to use unseen. Unseen. I just use that word in there, and I'll come up with something as it. So let's call it unseen retribution. And again, that comes from the fact that it has that bane on it that does the where you have to kill one lawful thing for every chaotic and vice versa. Also, it has quite a high intelligence, which I haven't rolled yet, which was 3d6 plus 4. It could be more intelligent than the wielder. This would be funny. So let's roll that up and see how intelligent this is. Oh, not that intelligent. So 4. I saw it was 3d4 plus 4. 8, 12. Intelligence of 12. So, you know, pretty good. So let's go back to the writing. So really it needs a stat block. Intelligence 12, vocal and telepathic with wielder. If I could get that in there. And at any time the wielder kills a lawful creature, the lawful being or the creature, they must next, rather than next, I'm going to say they are compelled within the week to address the balance by slaying a chaotic being. And then tying into that, I'll just say, you know, yeah, I'll just say that, yeah. That's fine, that's fine. The unseen retribution. Intelligent 12, vocal, and it's Dragonbane. Dragonbane, which extends the critical threat by 1. So if you'd normally be a 19 to 20 critical, it would become an 18 to 20. Or if it was 20, it would be a 19 against dragons. Its purpose. The purpose of this mace is to address the balance along the mountain range known as the Cobans to the north of Scarpsea. So again, that isn't, and as I mentioned before, this isn't going to lead into the future. This isn't going to lead into the current adventure, but potentially that's a lead on, a little hook on to something later on, because it has a purpose and it has a voice. And I'm going to give it actually a... that's interesting, I'm jumping over a page there, that's why it's going on to the next page. Let's view print layout. Turn off that document outline. So it needs a name, as in the personality in there, even though the weapon is called the Unseen Retribution. I'm going to give it a character name for the spirit or whatever it is that's bound into it that communicates with the character. So I was thinking maybe it could be female. Let's roll on my D100 table here and just see what I come up with. So 45 is down here a little bit. So female name's Yenis. That's quite good. And the surname 54. Yenis. Oh, back up to the top. Surname. Yenis Mole. That doesn't sound tough enough. That does. Deadlock. Yenis Deadlock. That's going to work. Okay, let's throw it in there. So I can say, after the bit about they can communicate, Yenis Deadlock is a female cleric that on her death committed to continue to address the balance in a fight against a family of dragons rather than just one dragons. So there we go. Committed to continue to address the balance in a fight against a family of dragons. That's fine. That's done. That's that mace. So what about its personality? I should write that when speaking. She has a clear, defined, calm voice and will keep repeating the need to address the balance after a being is killed, is slain, the wielder is impelled to kill one, to kill something, the opposite alignment. Okay, that's quite a little backstory coming for just a mace that's in this room, but yeah, sorry about that, dived off creatively there. Probably maybe a wee bit too much detail, but it's worth building these things in because you know, they're either there to be picked up and used and have a little bit of interest in them, or they're not. And it does, you know, as a games master when I'm, or a judge when I'm doing these games, I quite like having something that I can communicate with the players on to judge them judge them poorly and guide them sometimes, just that little chance. Not like you're like a little tiny D&D gnome, you know, the dungeon master behind the scenes, but more like a kind of voice of reason occasionally from something that's semi-intelligent that they're wielding or carrying. Plus I can then inject little extra bits of stories, and maybe she wants to send the players on a quest or something like that at some point. So yeah, that's it. Right, so I've done quite a lot more there. It doesn't feel like it to me, because sometimes I come in here and just, you know, in terms of judge preparation, I'm thinking to myself, right, I'll just fill that dungeon up. It'll only take me an hour or two. When you get down to it, you start to fill these things up, and you realise you get through one room, and then I create one creature, and then onto another room, and I've created one magical item, and that's about it. Actually, two magical items, because I've got that interesting scroll case. I think that will do for today then. That's been fun. Creating, so summary, where did I get to today? So let's get the map back up again. Although I can just flip to the map, it's on the other tool there. No, it's not, it's in there, arrow. So we're working through here. I created room 7 as an entranceway. We had skulls up there, which I'd rolled in a previous session that I'd done. We've said that within there there's a spiked lily creature that will lacerate people's legs as they go to this crumbled down door here. We have a secret door into the main barrow, and we detailed out all the specifications and the stat block for that creature in there, the weird attacking underwater lily that had the lily pads. So that came up top trumps for me, really, out of the dungeon alphabet. Actually, that wasn't the dungeon alphabet. That was the monster alphabet where I created that plant life in there. So first of all, I hit the pool, and it told me what was in a pool, and then I flipped and it went over to a plant life thing. So that was a nice couple of steps by using the Goodman Games books here that gave me that next view. I haven't got onto room 6 or 4 or 3 yet, but I have then done a little bit more detail on room 1, which if I go back to the actual details there, that's the huggers. I can see that the main burial chamber I've adjusted. I've put the sort of read aloud block that tells you that it's got this weird memorial stone that's glowing, and then we've decided to stick, because it's magnetic, again that was out of the book for me, that a few things have been pinned by magnetism onto there: a shield, a mace, a metal scroll case of the where we go, a scroll. So I've said a scroll, I need to say a metal scroll case. These are the things you spot because you kind of write them and then you realise you haven't actually described it properly. Done. So yeah, let's just look quickly back at the creature that was in there. So essentially we created this creature, the lilac spike lily. I used a subhuman class out of the Dungeon Crawl Classics book. And just basically use the stat block from there, but I did increase the hit dice. I slowed it down to only a 10-foot movement as well, because it's this watery creature. It's got the attack of +3, which is a spike, which is 1d6 +1, and then it's got sharp leaves, and the sharp leaves are the things that do the 1d3 damage, which I've just had to scroll down there. Sharp stems and leaves along the edge of the lily result in 1d3 damage to anyone passing through an area of water that contains it. So yeah, I mean, yes, it's feeling all right to me so far, and the whole overview itself of Scarpsea is slowly filling up. And say we were doing those barrows near the cliff's end on the right hand side. If I move my mouse over this side, we've got the barrows around the outside of cliff's end by that small lake. So yeah, thanks for listening in. So I'll just go back to myself to say goodbye. And I did want to mention DCC online, DCC Days Online. That's on the June the 11th to 14th. And you can register your games and things on there now, but I believe in the next week or so it's going to open up for tickets, and there's lots of online games. It's been really good for attracting in, well, people like me from the UK and across Europe. Last time I was on the Cyclops Con event, I did a game and I had some people from Germany, from the north of the UK, and some American people on there as well. So I had a whole mix getting together. So that's been a great thing. Obviously we were all a bit locked down, but it's sort of generated some community there, which has been fantastic, playing with new people across the world, which I don't normally do, because I normally have a local group that I murder every week here in the southeast of the UK. I'm just south of London. So I've submitted a game to DCC Days Online, but there's far superior judges to me, and some of the professional judges are in there as well doing games, so it's worth signing up. I think even Michael Curtis, who wrote these two books, the Dungeon Alphabet and the Monster Alphabet, he is doing 3 or 4 or more sessions there. I can never manage that. I only manage about 1 session before I just get exhausted because I do so much prep, and then it happens. Even though I'm quite spontaneous as well in my game, I'm writing this up here before you, but actually I do quite a lot of spontaneous things and change things as we play. But I find it quite exhausting doing the whole judging for 4 hours. 1 session over weekends enough, but these guys are heroes. They're like doing games Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So check out DCC Days Online. There's some great judges in there. And that's it. So that's me done. I shall now stop the stream, and thanks very much for listening in. Cheers. Goodbye.